Berlin, June 1948. Following the end of World War II, tensions had been increasing between the Allied military government and Soviets of East Berlin. The Cold War was becoming warm. 2.5 million people, more than half of Berlin's population, lived in the American, British, and French zones. The entire city of Berlin was surrounded by the Soviet zone of Germany. Supplying the Allies of West Berlin was a system of rails, canals, and roads. On June 24th, the Soviets, attempting to impose a communist regime over the Allied sectors of Berlin, severed all land and water routes between Berlin and the western zones of Germany. The Cold War was now becoming hot. This was a transparent attempt to force the Western Allies to surrender Berlin to the Soviets, and their weapon was hunger. With the suspension of all traffic arteries, the besieged city of Berlin was paralyzed. As all their lights went out, the Allies made an important decision: to hold Berlin. On June 26th, just 2 days after the land blockade began, General Curtis E. LeMay, commanding general of the U.S. Air Forces in Europe, started the airlift. The first airlift consisted of about 80 tons. General Lucius Clay, European commander-in-chief, joined in accepting the challenge. The call went out for cargo aircraft from around the world. In the States, Westover Field prepared airlift planes to span the Atlantic. The Combined Airlift Task Force headquarters was established at Wiesbaden. Rhine-Main was the chief air gateway to Berlin. The three 20-mile-wide corridors into Tempelhof Airport were the lifelines used to sustain Berlin. The air corridors were narrow and dangerous. The C-47s, later changed to C-54s for more carrying capacity, took off from the west 3 minutes apart. 40 to 50 planes were simultaneously flying at 5 different levels, 500 feet apart. With this many aircraft in the air, an extremely precise air traffic control was required. Thus, Operation Vittles was born. At the height of the airlift, the control tower at Tempelhof handled more than 400 landings and takeoffs around the clock, 7 days a week, regardless of weather. GCA operators talked the aircraft down at the rate of 1 landing every 3 minutes.
Baker George 2, this is the final controller. Remain on receive for the remainder of this transmission. Maintain your present elevation and continue vector 315. Begin your rate of descent at 500 feet per minute. We're starting down the glide path. Rate of descent is good. Azimuth is good. Elevation good. Very nice flying indeed. Maintain your heading. On course, on the glide path. Very good. Now over the end of the runway. Azimuth and elevation both perfect. Touchdown in 4 seconds. Take it over, Baker George 2. It's all yours from here.
The Air Force assigned more than 300 airplanes and more than 20,000 men to Operation Vittles. The Army, Navy, British, and French also made substantial contributions. Coal from the Ruhr, flour from the Midwest, sugar from Cuba, coffee from Brazil, butter and milk from Denmark, and many other supplies were sent from around the globe. Berlin's minimum daily requirement was about 4,500 tons of supplies. During 1949, Allied deliveries averaged in excess of 7,500 tons per day to the suffering people of Berlin. As the relief arrived, volunteer crews of displaced persons were always on hand to unload the aircraft. As rain and heavy fog arrived in the fall, the communists expected the airlift to be broken. Everyone was put to the supreme test, but Operation Victuals endured. Berlin was saved because the airlift delivered cargoes of peace rather than the bombs of just a few years earlier. Before Operation Victuals, Berlin was a city where children cringed in terror at the roar of planes overhead. Our planes taught them they need cringe no longer. The monument erected in Berlin to those who lost their lives still stands as a reminder of the airlift that kept the city alive. In 15 months, the airlift supplied 2.25 million tons of life-sustaining necessities, the greatest feat in transportation history. Celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Berlin airlift, your United States Air Force.
(1783). The war had ended. Victorious citizen soldiers were homeward bound. For most, their weapons would once again become plowshares and tools of industry. For a few, the struggle for independence and freedom would continue on a new battlefield, the Constitutional Convention. 22 of the 39 founding fathers who signed the Constitution were veterans of the Revolutionary War. They understood the importance of having a strong military controlled by elected civilian leadership. The Constitution established the President as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, but it is Congress that has the power to raise those forces and to declare war. After 200 years, we continue in the footsteps of those first Americans who fought for the words, "We ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America."
Good morning, San Antonio. You're listening to KJ 97, continuous country music.
I'll give you a call, all right?
All right. Bye.
I know I don't see anybody moving out here. Get your damn head nice straight ahead. Don't be looking at me. Come down here to bother me on the night. Get your head nice straight ahead.
Each year, thousands of young men and women begin their Air Force careers in basic military training school at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. For 6 weeks, the training and discipline to prepare them for their role in the United States Air Force will be led by a military training instructor.
You know what your love is? Your love is the United States Air Force. Oh, what do we have here? I just love the looks of your hair. I just love to see people with hair like this, because when we get down to the barber shop, you're going to be the first person that I'm going to be looking at to make sure that it falls on the floor all in nice even squares. Do you understand?
I'm Master Sergeant Ray Martin. I'm the Commandant of the Military Training Instructor School at Lackland Air Force Base. A lot of people think that MTI duty is non-volunteer. And although in the past that has happened, such as 8 or 10 years ago, today it is all volunteer. You have to be totally dedicated to your job, both physically and mentally. It has to be a part of you for 24 hours a day.
The hours are long, especially during the first week of training. That's the most difficult point for the instructor and for the airmen. They're learning a new routine, they're learning new rules and regulations. and they're going to make a lot of mistakes.
A little bit, so it's the proper way to salute. We're going to tilt his hand in towards his face, keeping the palm flat, facing towards the face, thereby forming a proper salute.
Second squad, attention.
Whenever I'm asked about my job, I usually get a lot of different opinions. Some people don't have any idea as to what I do. Instructors are really basically actors. A lot of people think that we're mean and nasty people. We're not.
We don't yell just to be yelling. One airman makes a mistake. We yell to make a correction so that all 60 airmen can hear that correction.
My entire life.
If we yelled 60 times to each individual to make individual corrections, we wouldn't have a voice by the end of the first week of training.
We usually very rarely see daylight leaving the house or coming back to the house because of the hours.
It is a privilege to be filling these beds, and for the next 6 weeks you will prove to me that it is a privilege and that you appreciate this by giving me your blood, your sweat, your determination, and your teamwork. And by doing this, you will have then proved that after 30 days of training, you are now members of the United States Air Force and proud enough to join this Air Force team.
The purpose of the Military Training Instructor School is to prepare selected individuals for duty as military training instructors. We start them out in the lecture area, which is nothing more than teaching them how to present a lecture to a group of individuals.
And I find it a lot easier to hold that hospital corner there is by placing your hand here.
And bring the excess material over. Tuck the excess material under, ensuring that the bed is tight and neat.
And from that, we springboard into the drill. Drill is very heavy in this school, primarily because that's the heaviest part of the TI's job.
Ma'am, Airman Clark reports as ordered.
I understand you need to see me. What seems to be the problem?
Yes, ma'am, I
We
want to go
teach
home.
them things about counseling,
that?
how to deal with the various problems that trainees bring to
You're in
them.
your 4th day of training and you've decided that you don't like it here.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's a very all-encompassing school, and although we only have 5 weeks to do it, most of them graduate from here with a very good basic foundation for TI duty. The reward for the military training instructor is the 30th day. That's when he sees the results of his work.
When this airman's standing tall in blues and the instructor sees it, it makes them feel good, and they know that they're sending somebody that's able to go out into the Air Force and carry on the mission.
When they walk out of there with their blues on, it's the greatest feeling in the world. It really is, because you can look at it and you say, I did that. I don't think there's any other job in the Air Force that could give you that kind of satisfaction.
The training instructor badge that I wear is a symbol of honor, integrity, and excellence in military deportment.
My job is one of the most important in the Air Force, and I will spare no effort to properly prepare young men and women for military duty. I am dedicated to the principles of fairness, firmness, and honesty in my dealings with those entrusted to my charge. I am pledged to strive for perfection and to reject mediocrity, both in my personal behavior and in the performance of those for whom I am responsible. I am a military training instructor.